Welcome to the Creating Connections podcast, where I bring voices and perspectives from people who are making a difference for children's learning and development. I'm Rachel Stewart, and I'm passionate about connecting with people to share experiences and learn from each other how we can best support children to thrive. As founder and director of Practically Learning, I specialise in developing the capacity of parents and educators through my personal development coaching and professional learning programs to build relational capital and trust to engage in effective partnerships. I'm endlessly curious about what is happening in our world today, especially in our schools, and how we can share good news stories and strategies for what's working and how to improve the lives of children in our world today and for the future. In this series of the podcast, we're exploring successful leaders in education so you can learn from a diverse range of people what makes a successful leader and how you can take their learnings and apply them to your leadership. Today, I'm introducing you to an accomplished leader who is currently the English as an additional language leader for the New South Wales Department of Education. Quee has had a hugely diverse career as a coach, mentor, and primary school teacher, but also as a leader of educators, developing tertiary units for the Bachelor of Education for Western Sydney University, and as an assessor for the highly accomplished Leading Teachers program. She has consulted on several advisory bodies in education and has worked extensively with multicultural and Indigenous communities across various socio-economic areas in New South Wales. I'm excited to learn more about Kerrie's extremely diverse career as a teacher and leader in education, so I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Kerrie Quee to the podcast today. I'd like to welcome you to the podcast. We spoke several weeks ago, and when we first had a conversation, you were sort of hesitant as to whether you would be suitable for this podcast as a successful education leader. But the more I learned about you, the more I realized you have so many things to share, and you've had such a diverse career that I really wanted to explore that further with you. And so I guess if we can start by, if you can take us back to where it all began, where your passion for education began, and how it sort of led to where you are today in terms of your work with Indigenous and diverse communities. I'm really interested to learn more about that and the work that you're doing in this space, and also around family engagement as well. So perhaps you could just take us back to where it all began for you.
Where it all began, look, I feel like I've had a calling to be a teacher. You know, it's not just something that I've happened to fall into. Even as a little kid, before I went to school, you know, I'd be teaching all my toys, and then my poor brothers and sisters had to be taught as well. They could never be the teacher; it always had to be me. And then, you know, in school, my primary and high school, they were okay days, but nothing outlandishly amazing. You know, I did okay, but I don't know. It wasn't like it was necessarily a place where you think, oh, I can't wait to just stay in school for the rest of my life, you know. But then when I did my HSC, I was very young. So when I went to school, I have an August birthday, but I actually went in the August when I turned 5. So I continued on, which meant that I was always over a year younger than everybody else. And so my HSC was a bit devastating. I really wasn't ready to study it, you know, and had the maturity that I needed, I feel, as a young teenager trying to do my work. And so when I got my mark, I was completely devastated. And I guess Mum and Dad, they knew I only ever wanted to be a teacher, and just kind of said, oh, well, maybe you need to think about something else. And really, there was nothing else. And so I just sat on that. And I have to just put it out there right at the beginning that, you know, my life is faith-based. I've grown up going to church and, you know, having a faith to believe that I have a destiny in that. And so I just believed and thought, no, I really feel called to being a teacher. And so turns out that I got my first choice, which was Kerrie College of Advanced Education, and back in the 80s. So it was a long time ago, and did really well. I thrived at uni. So I'd obviously found my place. So after really not thriving at school that well. I loved university and studying teaching, and finally getting to the place that I just really felt like I almost already felt like I knew what they were talking about. That, sure, I was learning,
Yeah.
but it was just all falling into place. So I did my uni course, and then my Bachelor of Education as well. So I've finished all that within that first 5 years. I was teaching by 85, so next year will be 40 years of teaching, or in the teaching service.
Wow.
And yeah, that's a long time. So I guess in some of the readings that I've been doing actually over the holidays, I've been reading this beautiful book called Phosphorescence by Julia Baird. And in it, she was talking to someone, and they said, "Oh, I'm tired but not jaded." And over the years, that's how it's been. I've never become jaded by education, by working in schools. I also work at uni, and even there, I just sure you get tired, and some years I am more tired than others, depending on the stresses and what's come about, but never jaded. I'm
Yeah.
always just so excited about teaching. It's what I've been called to be, a teacher.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it sounds to me that the passion and the burning desire to be a teacher is what pushed you through, and of course your faith as well.
Yes, definitely.
Um, and I suppose back in when we were younger, as females, we were really only given two choices. I recall having
Teacher or a nurse?
yeah, teacher or nurse. These are
Yeah,
your career choices, teacher or a
yeah,
nurse.
that's
And
right.
yeah, you were lucky if you wanted to be a teacher or a nurse, but
Yeah.
so it sounds like, yeah, you sound like you had the same advice.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
and I'm so far away from being a nurse. Hospitals, I don't feel comfortable there at all, so it was never going to be a nurse.
so as you moved into higher education and moved into your first job as a
Yes.
teacher, can you share a little bit more about who your first role models were as a teacher? And I suppose for people who are just beginning in teaching who may be watching as well, what sort of advice you would give to them in terms of finding the right support and mentors
Yeah.
as they
Yeah.
begin their journey?
Yes. And things have changed, from 40 years ago. So I just remember my first appointment, and it was really exciting being there. I was there for 10 years or 9 before I left, and had two girls, two children. And I think in that time, back then, we were left more to our own devices in a sense, in that, the syllabus was there. We wrote up our programs. We were lucky if they were ever checked, and did what we could in the classroom. But we also had this, it just seemed to be a natural, nice band of friends that you'd talk to and just share some ideas. But, you were sort of on your own. But I feel like back then, there weren't the pressures that there are now, and how much more important it is now to find that group of people that are going to be supporting you. So when I teach at uni, I'm teaching in the Masters of Education, and those pre-service teachers are the next lot. They're going to be taking my spot pretty soon. And so what do I say to them? And to thrive in their first 5 is so important. Otherwise, they're going to drop out, and they need to find those mentors. And I think that's, this is what I say to them when you're on prac. You're going to know how comfortable you feel in that school. And some schools you'll feel more comfortable and supported and led. And then there'll be others where you might just feel too much on your own, and you just know that you're not going to thrive in that. And you don't have to stay, as pre-service teachers and early career teachers, you can move around a little bit and find your place where you know that you're going to get that support. So that's my advice to them these days, because I don't think you can do it on your own like we used to, back in the day.
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah. So they need to find the people that are going to be their crew, and that really support them.
Yeah. So you've just touched on your work as a pre-service teacher at
Yep.
university. Which
Yep.
university are you teaching at the moment?
Yeah, that's Western Sydney University, and I'm based over at Bankstown campus.
Yep. And what
So
do you love most about um, the initial teacher education
yeah.
courses? I know you've actually created some of the courses and
Oh
assessments
yeah,
as well.
that's true. Yeah. Hmm.
What do you love most about, yeah, mentoring those new teachers that are coming through, and what have you noticed that they are really seeking in terms of really having an understanding and an awareness of how to be fully prepared for the profession?
Mm, yeah. Um, Look, I do love my work at uni, and I think it's kind of giving back now to the next generation. So it was a choice for me to just branch out of school a bit, and so I'm still in school 3 days a week, but then with the Department of Education, but then uni kind of takes up my other couple of days, and so I feel like students, they want to know what to teach. So a big part of our course, of course, is looking at the syllabus documents. But it's not just about looking at the outcomes, saying, okay, well, that's what you have to teach. How do you do that these days? Classrooms are so diverse. And my particular specialty is EALD, so that's the English as an additional language or dialect students. So I bring that a little bit to my courses too. But, with these diverse classrooms, how do you differentiate? And what on earth does that look like? And when you start delving into that, you just see their eyes getting wider and wider and think, oh no, what have I got myself in for?
Yeah.
And then, of course, from the diverse learning, you've also got this behaviour management, that has to come to place too. And I think there's so much that we can do at uni, but obviously on the ground prac is the most important, in getting into schools. And it'd be lovely to see actually, well, our uni has, some good prac in place, but I think across the universities, it'd be great to see our students in school more often, because that's where you're going to come across the challenging behaviour. It's all very well doing a role play in uni, but until you get into that classroom and see that child who is just pacing up the back because they can't sit, or who just all of a sudden screams, well, what do you do? Until you're in the front of that and speaking to your mentor teachers and hearing exec and how they deal with some other behaviour management trials that happen at school. Until you're there in that, you can't really teach it or know it.
Yeah, especially if
So
you've never had children as well. It's a very
yes,
challenging space to be in for
very,
young
very
people.
much so. Yeah, that's right. And in fact, the teachers that come who have been SLSOs in schools, so the pre-service teachers who have been the support people, are kind of like my students who have been to preschool, pre-kindergarten. They've been involved. They know the school environment. They've seen some of these behaviours, and they've supported students who need extra support in their learning. And so they come really well prepared to university, having seen this, and have great questions and can give some really good examples for the students who haven't and who've come straight from high school, perhaps, or even in other industries. And so I just think that, our courses are great, and I think they come out very knowledgeable and, ready to teach, but there's nothing like getting them in the classroom and getting them into schools with their mentor teachers.
Yeah, just basically jumping off the cliff and having faith that the parachute will open.
Yeah,
when
yes,
you most need it.
absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And look, that's where us as university advisors come in as well, because sometimes they've landed in a school that perhaps isn't supportive enough, or they're not understanding their own place in teaching and where they want to go. So I guess as a leader and an advisor in that situation, we can ask some critical questions and help them through that prac. We like to not pull them out, even if they might feel like they're imploding a little bit, but just try and guide them through it to say, right, let's just keep giving it a go. Let's, see if things change, if something shifts. And if not, okay, we'll talk to you later about, whether this career is for you or not. So there's a lot of reflection at that university level.
Yeah. So in your 40 years of being a teacher and educator, what do you think has caused or gradually changed the behaviours of children in the school environment? And there's probably many factors
Yeah,
that contribute to it. Um, but I suppose you would have seen many changes over that time. What do you think is the main challenge, and how are schools actually managing children with their such diverse backgrounds and behaviours that they bring to school? And obviously, we know that a lot of what they're bringing to school has potentially been as a result of their home environment or
that's
any
right.
experiences that they've had.
Yeah.
And how do schools actually manage that? And also, how do they engage parents in
Mm.
supporting their work in managing their children's behaviours at school?
Yeah, wow. That's
That's
a
a big
loaded
question, I know, sorry.
yeah. And if yeah, hey everybody listening, I have the answers, so let's go with this.
We'll just feel our way through the answer.
Yeah, look, I do think the behavior has changed a lot. But I guess with having children across a lot of diversity in our classrooms now has changed the dynamic in schools. And there are children who do get placed in say support unit or in behavior schools, or schools for specific purposes, which is great. We need those classrooms and places for those students, because as I've read, parents have said, my child can't be in mainstream. I don't want them there in mainstream. This class that they're in now with 6 or 7 other children is perfect for my child. So we know the place of those special units and support classes and how important that is. But not every child and not every parent has that feeling, and they want them in the mainstream, their children, and so look, some will thrive, and it does depend a little bit on the school and how experienced they are with this very diverse range of children's behaviour that they can see. It depends too on the parents and how engaged they are in the solutions and the interventions. And sometimes, they're actually willing to carry over some of the school interventions into their home and take on some of those sort of boundary driven interventions that can be very helpful. But I don't know. It's policy change over the years that has been helpful in some ways and unhelpful in others. There's also there's a bit of a sense of entitlement at the moment, and that's coming from students, coming from parents. So I guess societal change, teachers perhaps not being as respected as in the past. As a teacher, a young teacher, I always felt very respected, and even in my 20s, that a parent would come up and ask, and I'd do my best to give advice, but I still felt that conversation was a very respectful one, whereas these days I know that it doesn't always pan out that way. So in answer to your question, I don't have answers to your questions.
I think you answered it very well, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a very individual solution, I feel. And
Yeah.
there are teachers who will do very well with a certain group of children. And I think that's where leadership really needs to know who their teachers are, who are the early career teachers that really shouldn't have to be understanding the complexities of these 2 students at this point. Let's put them with someone a bit more experienced for now.
Yeah.
It really does come down to school leadership and understanding who your teachers are in the school.
Yeah, and what their capacities are at that time.
Yes, absolutely. And to build that capacity, don't just, if you want them to take these children, yeah, great, because they need to, but how do you build how do you build the capacity in my staff? And it's not just about courses either. It's about observing and watching the experienced teachers. And look, I've been in a few different areas. In the area that I'm in now, I have had a learning curve in my own career, after all this time, in seeing some very complex behaviours and situations that I've just watched, the principal and the exec deal with those, and they've been amazing. And it's taught me, I guess, that teaching, you're just learning all the time, aren't you? We're always learning, and I guess that's why I've perhaps not become jaded, because I just figure, oh well, I don't know that, I'm going to have to learn about that and get excited about the next sort of chapter of what I can learn.
And do you think that with children, the changes that have occurred over the years and are still they're still changing now?
Yeah, true.
That as educators, you do have to be adaptive to the way that children are presenting now, or is it more a case of trying to create some structures that perhaps they're missing out on at home, or some ways that they feel more safe at school so that they can learn effectively?
Absolutely, all those things. Adaptive.
Yeah.
I've really heard that word a lot, and I feel like I've probably always been adaptive, but I think it's a thing at the moment where if you don't grow with the times, you will tend to fall away. And that is probably another reason why I do feel, not jaded, is because I've been able to adapt over the different syllabus documents, the different behaviour policies that we've had, and so I think, being adaptive is very important, but also in conjunction with that, and I've always said it's not to do this or that, it's this and that together. And I've seen over 40 years, I've seen this thrown out, we've got to do that. And I've never been like that. I've always said, well, no, actually, I'm just going to take this as well and bring it in with that. do you know what I mean? This and that.
Making those connections. And
absolutely. And so we still need boundaries. Children are children, and
yes.
I've brought two up, and they need boundaries, whether it was 40 years ago or still today. However, but within those boundaries, there's no reason why we can't be adaptive and work out what is working for that child, and how can we support them. And it could be as simple as talking to a parent, but then it may not be. It could be a 12-month journey. So it's not a battle, it's a journey of understanding that child and winning them over, and working out what makes them tick, and what they respond to and what they don't respond to. And so what you're saying is true. Adaptive, yes. Boundaries, absolutely. We need a bit of everything.
Yeah. So how much of that is included in initial teacher education in terms of understanding children's behaviours and their learning development? So I think even now there's been so much research done on the brain and how we learn and why we behave certain ways. Is that an area that you feel needs to be more of a focus at initial teacher education stage, so that when new teachers come into the profession and when you're teaching leaders as well, that they're well equipped with the knowledge and understanding of how to actually manage those behaviours?
Yes and no. So we do need more in the behaviour management area, because it is more complex now. But universities do theory really well, right? So we've got the research and we teach them the research, but it's really hard to teach them what that looks like in real life. And it's not very well, yes, for me to stand up and say, oh, and, a child might throw a chair out a window, so then what do we do? But unless you're actually in that situation, it's practice, isn't it? Because you can read and read and read, and yet it's like the rip in the ocean. I know in my head that you're supposed to just go with the rip and float on your back, and someone will either come and get you or you'll be taken back around to the beach. But I've heard so many times that you just panic in that situation and start trying to swim. So, and I was only just talking about that yesterday. So I feel like in talking about this now, it's a bit similar. We can give them all the theory, which is important, and they do need to know child development and all the different ways of behaviour management. But I keep coming back to, they need to be in schools and see the behaviours that we're talking about and practice. and have the mentor teacher say, okay, well, these are the kids in our class, and this is the possibilities that could happen while you're teaching. Let's preempt it. What might you do? This is what I do. I'm going to show you what I do. But let's preempt it. If you're teaching your lesson, what could you do? And also giving that pre-service teacher an out. Just say, let's have a code, and just throw to me if you really feel like I'm losing this and I need an out, because sometimes I find mentor teachers can be a bit tough and just say, no, you push through, and then the class just ends up in mayhem, and it's not fair.
Yeah.
And so I feel as though, as a good mentor teacher, they really can be preempting the behaviours, give the tools and ideas, and then give an out and just say, you let me know if you want an out, and I'll stand up and we'll finish teaching the lesson together.
Yeah. Do you think it also that there's a space for teachers to understand their own self-awareness as well, and how they actually manage their own emotions during those very challenging moments? And I know as a parent and as a teacher myself at university level, I had to learn to be calm in the eye of a storm and really understand how I was responding to different things that were coming up, and instead of responding impulsively, just really being mindful of how I was coming across and projecting to the children or to the students. And do you think that, I suppose we don't really get taught that. I only was aware of it because I had a coach and then became a coach, and you're a coach yourself as well.
Yeah.
Do you see that there's a huge gap in that, area of teaching of mindfulness and self-awareness?
Yes, and I think that's why it's showing up in a lot of books at the moment. And another one that I've just read is Thrive by Daniela Filecki, and she's got practical strategies for nourishing teacher wellbeing, and in it she talks about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And I really liked that chapter, because I think, yes, we can't show students emotional intelligence, and this goes across high school as well, and even my students at university, unless I'm showing some emotional intelligence myself in my responses to different situations. And it is really hard, because you especially as a parent, you say something to your own children the way that you've brought them up and put boundaries in your place, and you expect them to do it. And then you get into a classroom with 25, 30 kids, whatever, and there's all these kids doing different things that, that aren't listening to you. And you do feel that bubbling sense of, oh, you can be angry, or I've lost it, I don't know what to do, helplessness. So the emotional intelligence comes in there at the point of control and just staying calm. And I've seen some amazing responses to kids where I've thought, oh, wow, I'd be pretty mad by now. Yeah, from lovely teachers that have just sort of talked to the kids saying, oh, okay, well, do you think that's appropriate right now? How about we think about two choices, and we can make one of those two choices? I just love the way they talk to them.
Yeah.
And but then also the emotional intelligence to be able to give yourself feedback later, reflect on it. Why was I getting so angry? Didn't really matter, okay, they didn't do what I was wanting them to do, but I could have regrouped. And this is what I used to do with my own children. We'd have these spats and times when even they were at each other, and I always made it a point at the end of the day just to regroup. Right, we're a family, this is what we do, that was unacceptable, but that's why it happened. So, and why can't you do that in the classroom too? Regroup, let's just have a look at why that happened, everybody. Maybe we needed a break, maybe I moved too quickly onto that next lesson, so right now we're going to do this little physical thing, we're going to go outside, have some fun, and then we're going to come back and have some fun with our writing. So that honesty, I guess, with the children and regrouping with them.
Yeah,
so
I think that's a great strategy.
On your own, but with them, so that they know that they're part of that process of bringing back our class together as a homogenous group.
And that really takes a lot of, high emotional intelligence to be able to be intentional in doing that, but
That's,
also a certain sense of vulnerability
yeah,
in acknowledging, or maybe I moved too quickly for you, or,
yeah,
but that's really a strategy in getting to know the students too, isn't it? And understanding why they're not coping. And then because it's an energy transfer too, in terms of if children are starting to misbehave, there's something going on here that's
absolutely.
causing them to be that way. So
Yeah,
let's just reflect on what that
yeah,
is, and then we can come to a solution together. And I think that's a
yeah.
great strategy.
Yeah, yeah, it is good. And I
Mm.
think students too, they uh you can't have them sitting on the floor no matter what age they are for 45 minutes these days.
They're going to get
Um,
restless.
they're going to get restless. That's right. And
Yeah.
and what you've said 45 minutes ago, that's gone. um, and then it makes me laugh when either I'm observing someone or I do it myself, and they off you go, you can go and do your activity now, and you've got your five that sit there and say, what are we doing again? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because
That's
their
my
brains are
fault.
working differently as well.
Yeah, and it's probably my fault, not your fault. So
They're probably
yeah,
the daydreamers.
yeah, that's right. I lost them on my story 5 minutes
Yeah.
or 10 minutes ago. They're still, yeah, off at the
The
beach that I was
fairies.
just talking about. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I want to touch on your work, your amazing work in the English as an additional language
Yeah,
area, and how you came into doing this work and working with very diverse communities and Indigenous communities.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it'd be really interesting to learn what piqued your interest in that,
Mm.
and what sort of experiences you've had with those diverse communities.
Yeah, well, that all came to be really through the leadership of a particular principal when I came back to teaching after I'd left to have my children. So I taught for 10 years, had the girls, and actually took some time off during that, and then came back. And I came back into a school that is walking distance to my place, so 3 minutes walk. And
Convenient.
yeah, and that is actually still my substantive position, even though I'm not there at the moment. And so when that was 2000, 2003 or something, around about then. And the principal just said, look, we've got one day of ESL. And because that's what it was called back then. And I said, sure, I'll take that, because I was just doing some casual work at that school and only that school. And so she put me on that one day permanent. And then the next year, we got an extra funding. So it was 2 days permanent, like as in a temp contract, And then I was in the role, and then I got 3 days. And I was in that role then for 3 years. And then staffing apparently called and said to her, you need to make that position permanent. So staffing rang me and said, hi, we're making a position permanent, 5 days. I said, I don't want to be permanent 5 days. Can I do 3? They agreed. And so then I just became permanent part-time for the last 20 years, basically, in the ESL position in that school. And so that particular principal, who's now one of our executive directors actually in the department, was such a mentor to me. And if ever there was an opportunity, I mean, I never knew what went on at higher levels outside of my school. I just did stuff at school. I led things, and I led the ESL program and made sure that everyone was being supported the best possible way and had resources, and made sure the money was being used properly. But she'd come along and say, oh, Kerrie, there's something that you could present at, maybe, have a look at what you're doing and see if it fits in with this. And so I'm not one to say no. So I guess that's
To a
why I'm here
challenge.
now. Yeah. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. And she came with me and I presented, and that was fun. And I enjoyed that kind of rising a little bit in leadership. Anyway, then so then I was permanent in that role, went along with that for a while, and I remember going to a network meeting, and it was in the form of a conference, and I saw some of our sort of ESL leader people at that time from the department presenting, and I thought, oh, could do that. I'd really like to be in their role one day. So just by chance in 2013, well, not by chance, everything happens for a reason. In 2013, a new principal had come along actually, but she was wrong. And they said, oh, we'd like Kerrie just to fill a role for 12 months of someone who's doing some more state office type roles. And do you think, would you release her to do this role? And it was an ESL consultant. I couldn't believe it. Like, the principal called me in and said, oh, you've been seconded.
You've been headhunted.
Yeah. And it was left of field. I could not believe that I'd sat there in the conference the year before thinking, oh, I'd like to do that. And there we go. It's like, it's sort of speaking out your desires, your heart's desire, just speaking it out and thinking, oh, I'd like to do that. And then the opportunity came along. And I know that's not always, but so I really enjoyed 2013 and working as an ESL consultant, and that really projected my leadership. I made a lot of contacts during that time, did a lot of presenting. A new learning progression for EALD had come out. Well, even the EALD acronym was changing during that time. The ESL consultants were actually being disbanded. So I was in that last 12 months of that particular job. It was a big time of change, and I just really enjoyed being part of all that and presenting some of this new world for the EALD.
And who were you mostly presenting to?
I was presenting to other EALD teachers across New South Wales. Yeah. In this new learning progression and how to assess students using this new EALD learning progression. Because it was brand new, and it also informs the funding for public schools, and so it was very important to know how to use it.
Yeah.
So that was 2013, and I did some really important projects during that time, and just really grew as a leader. And that time also, my line manager said, "Oh, Kerrie, have you ever looked at the highly accomplished or lead standards, teaching standards?" Because that person really felt like I could probably put together a good, submission for either highly accomplished or lead teacher. So anyway, that was just in the back of my mind, and it was actually something that really, because I'm a learner, and that's actually come out in a couple of strengths questionnaires or surveys that I've done. That really struck a chord with me, and I started looking at the teaching standards, and I loved these highly accomplished lead standards and could see myself in them.
Yeah.
So then 2014, I was also seconded again to what they called a curriculum advisor, but I was allowed to have EALD written after it. So I was specifically a curriculum advisor, EALD, for a particular region. And so during that time, I continued very similar work to the consultant work, but created EALD Connect, which is still running today as sort of networks for EALD teachers within the department, and named it. So that was very exciting. And I think so really those 2 years, just being thrown into corporate and having to learn that, but also just leading across, well, New South Wales, I suppose, really strengthened my resolve to knowing me as a leader, not just sort of leading quietly at school, but taking that mantle, and accepting that, okay, I can be a leader in the field, and this can be a specialization for me. As a teacher, you don't have to just stick with one thing. You can actually have a specialization. So anyway, yeah.
How was that? Yeah, sorry to interrupt. How was that for you personally, in terms of you always saw yourself as a teacher?
Yeah.
As an educator and a lifelong learner, but how did it feel for you personally to reach that leadership level? And it is another level, especially when you're working in policy development and connecting with people in government and that sort of space, that not many people get the opportunity to do that. No. And as you said, see the other side of education and all the other things that are going on without anyone's knowledge, and a lot of teachers unaware of it.
That's right.
Decisions that are being made, and who's making those decisions, and how do those submissions get written and processed. So For you
Yes.
personally, what did it do for you?
I had to decide on, well, I didn't have to decide, I already knew what kind of leader I was going to be. So you have your administrative type leaders, and probably by mid two, 2000s, if I had have wanted to be a principal, AP, DP, that kind of leader, I would needed to have been on that trajectory by now. But looking at the standards and analysing who I was and where I saw myself in the teaching standards, I saw myself as highly accomplished. And if you look at the standards there, it's all about mentoring, right? So I'm a mentor leader, a teacher, mentor leader. so, so I'm still that teacher. But rather than being the one who has to look at programs and make sure that everything's in the right place at the right time, and I came from more of a softer mentoring kind of approach, which really suited me. And so I ended up getting my highly accomplished accreditation by choice. So I did highly accomplished rather than lead. But highly accomplished is leading, and that's why they're brought together and we're called HALTs. The accreditation to me just helped me assess my practice, so my classroom practice, but also my practice in terms with, well, what am I doing with to assist and to mentor the people next door to me or in my network, and so that's having gone for the highly accomplished or the HALT accreditation really helped me sort of work out where I sat as a leader, and so with that mentorship, so I now kind of had a label, I suppose, or an understanding why am I not a principal by now? Because people would say, oh, yes, you're a leader, why don't you go for principal? But I knew, and even at uni, and this is letting the cat out of the bag, because I've been offered, some coordinator style roles, but I just like being in the classroom.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher.
A lot of principals say that too. They miss being in the classroom.
I know, it's true. And they've chosen that role, and that's fine because that's what they've chosen, but I've deliberately chosen not to do that. And so the role that I'm in now, the EALD education leader, is actually a genius role in terms of our corporate, because it really is a corporate role based in a school. So the background you've got there is actually, my office. That's the school that I'm based in and what I look at over outside my window.
It looks beautiful.
Yes. And so what I like about that is that I can see kids playing, that I can just go out there and still talk to children and still be in that environment. I haven't lost touch, and because I'm K to 12 and I've taught uni, taught K to 6, but not taught high school. Last year I said to one of our stage 6 English EALD English teachers, can I please do a couple of lessons? Will you trust me? Because I just want to get a feel for high school, and for those students who are learning English, but just need all that scaffolding. And she said, sure, come and do 2 lessons. So I went and taught in high school. So because it's corporate based in school, it just means that I have that access to classrooms. And
I think that's fantastic. And maybe it could be an idea for Department of Education and the Catholic system leaders and people who work for the Catholic education systems to actually be placed in schools. So you're still in touch with the school environment and what's actually happening, and being able to connect with the students.
Yes, and teachers, and hearing, well, and I'm, I do go to their admin meetings. I don't have to be 100% involved in my particular, school, but I do go to their admin meetings, and there's some staff meetings that I will go to as well, just to, if I think, I really need to catch up on that with the syllabus, so I'll go to that. But then I'm across Regional South Directorate, sort of from Campbelltown down to Picton, and so if there's something going on in any one of those schools, I know the principal will have me there, and I'll just say, look, is it okay if I sit in on that meeting? I'd really be really interested. And this is the kind of model that really I feel like all our literacy and numeracy advisors, why not have a school spot? And classrooms are a premium as well. I'm lucky to have found the principal has found a space for me and is happy for me to be there. So not every school will have those spaces. but even, so Tammy Anderson is the principal at the school, and she, you mentioned before about Aboriginal education, and she is, I've had a learning curve of experience in the school that I'm now currently in. So my main area of expertise is EAL. The D part is the dialect, specifically for Indigenous students. And that is not really within my area of expertise. So in being in the school that I'm in, which is 45% Aboriginal students, I've just been watching and learning through their Aboriginal education classes, what they do, everything they do is has Aboriginal education embedded into it. Their programming, their welfare, their wellbeing programs. And so, and not just, it's First Nations education. We also have a very high Pacifica group. And I've also aligned myself with the what we call the Tasman Sea School. And so that also is First Nations education. And just seeing how important culture is. Once children can connect into culture and connect into others around them that understand culture, they are just so much more motivated and excited to talk and to be involved in lessons. And so my office space was part of the Tasman Sea School this last year, 2023. And I was able to work with them, because I'm school-based, work with them in developing their programs beyond just the speaking and listening. So we wanted to do some things with reading and writing in language as well. I guess because I heard them talking and planning, and they said, Kerrie, come, you'll have some things that you can help us with. And so we just developed this wonderful program where the kids are now authors and have created books in language, and that's been distributed to their families, and they were just so proud. Going back to their classrooms with these books that that they authored and could read to their peers. And I guess when they come to Tasman Sea School, and it's the same when the kids go to their Aboriginal education lessons, it's just building that confidence in those smaller lessons to then go to their mainstream classroom and feel that, oh, wait a minute, I can put my hand up and say something,
And it's acknowledging their culture and their strengths in being able to write in their own language.
Yeah.
That's a fairly advanced, well, I haven't heard of that before, and I think that that's a really advanced way of connecting culture with education and acknowledging how they learn as well.
Yeah.
So
yes.
how do you connect with the families? And I suppose that's part of connecting with the families is getting them to write the stories and read them to their families.
Yeah, sure.
How is the loop closed? Or how do you close the loop in gathering feedback from the families and really engaging them in their children's learning journey?
Well, at the school, the parents are encouraged. With Tasman Sea School, actually, parents are encouraged to come up. So if they're at home that particular day and they know that that those lessons are going to be on, they're allowed to come up. And actually, they, the Maori word for family is whānau, and they say that the whānau is always welcome. And so sometimes we'll just have parents come and actually help, which is great, because when we're writing in language, we do have a Maori speaking teacher who does the class, but it's lovely having the parents there sometimes too to bridge that gap and to help us out, because I have no clue. I'm just picking it up as I go. But and sort of doing the pedagogy, but learning about culture within that. So that's for that project that we did, and whānau is always invited for the Tasman Sea. But when it comes to our Aboriginal education programs as well, it is school wide, and we have things all the time for parents. Once a term, we have a parent dinner where we get feedback, and they do some activities to know what is actually going on in the different key learning areas at school. And we have all the usual seesaw and all those kinds of parent engagement things. But I don't know, it's just such a little oasis, our school, in an area that, you could describe as sometimes troubled, and yet we really, I don't know, the behaviours are impeccable, and the children, you walk past classrooms and the children are engaged in their learning from 9 o'clock, and this is what they say to parents, 10 past 9 is not good enough, be here at 9 because we start as soon as we go in, and they are, there is the parent community respect, but I think that's because they're involved.
Yeah.
And they know that they have a voice. And then when there is an issue, well, they will respect teachers and will try and work with the teachers because of that open communication. I think that some schools have closed the gate since COVID, and the gate hasn't been reopened, and that's a shame because it's easy. It's easy to keep the gate closed because teachers like to close their rooms at the end of the day, send the kids off, say goodbye, and then go to whatever meeting they've got to go to. Whereas back in the day, I'd be standing outside my classroom, could be sometimes for half an hour, just chatting to the parents when they came and pick their kids up. And post-COVID now, that's gone in many, many places, I think.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's easy.
It's easier than connecting with parents.
Well, it is really, and for some schools are 1,000 big. Some schools that I visit are massive. So reopening the school gate again and saying, "Hi, everybody, come on in." Those schools actually have the drive-by thing where the parents come by, the
drop-off zone.
Yeah, that's right, because the schools are so big. So, I mean, partly, I guess that's part of it. The schools are very big now. But also, I mean, our school is smaller. We have, I don't know, I think it's 300, which is a small school. And so that is easier, I suppose, to have the gate open and to allow people to interact. So it's not just one thing. It's not just that it's easy. There's
what do you think the impact is of closing those gates again? What is the impact on?
Or keeping, parents just feel left out. Parents feel left out because you know that when a kid goes home and you say to them, "Oh, what did you do today?" They just go, "Oh, nothing," or they remember what they played at lunchtime. And so, if you can't talk to the classroom teacher, and they might have been crying in the morning, but the classroom teacher says, "Oh no, they were great," by 10 minutes, and hey, I just remembered, do you want to see what they did? And see that picture on the wall, they actually did that today, that was beautiful. So you're missing those incidental chats, and you find things out. Then parent might just say, "Oh, I'm so pleased because last night this happened, and I was a little bit worried about today," and you can stop the conversation there. You don't have to go on and on, and that takes some emotional intelligence and knowing how to interact with parents. But those relationships, I feel, have really been compromised.
Yeah, how do you think over your teaching career that those relationships really helped you as a teacher so that you can share the benefits of actually conversing, or even if it's just a quick email to share a good news story about their child, or exploring different things that are happening in the classroom with the parent that perhaps they could support you with? Has it impacted your career?
Oh, look, I've always loved my parent interactions. And once again, not jaded. I know some people can end up a bit jaded by some parent interactions, and I don't blame them. But I have just felt that there's some children who I could have so misunderstood just because of their quirkiness or some behaviours that very quickly were dispelled just because I was able to have a relationship with parents. And even with kinder orientation, that's where I sort of start building some relationships, or even meet meet the teacher, you know, and then there's those ones where they just come up and pick the kids up after school. But once again, I've seen over my years early career teachers who have gone too far and the boundaries have blurred with parent friends.
Yeah.
And then those who want to have nothing to do with parents unless a kid is bad or, you know, and misbehaving. So it is also something that you develop over the years and know where to stop.
Yeah, you can't be expected to know exactly what to do straight away.
No.
And it's like any relationship, isn't it? It's quite a different sort of relationship between parents and teachers. And because the person that means the most is the child at the center. And you've got to come to a happy medium of what those boundaries are and how to work together. But yeah, as you said, don't cross those boundaries in terms of your professionalism.
Yeah, that's right.
In that relationship.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too that parents may not understand that their child in a school classroom could be different to home. So a classic example is, you know, an only child that I know who at home and during COVID, he's incredibly gifted child, particularly across all subjects, and his memory is amazing. Well, he was so focused at home by himself. He learned so much, was amazing, and his parents just fed, you know, the education. Get him in a classroom, that's it. He's distracted, can't do any, you know, anything, sitting in his chair for more than 5 minutes. And his poor parents, his poor mum was just so confused. You know, she kept saying, this is the writing he's doing at home, and the teacher would say, that's home writing, this is his school writing, you know. And
unfortunately,
it was not a very positive interaction.
Blended, so like you said before, blending the two together.
Yes. And so I kind of took up there a little bit and a bit of a go-between and started trying to explain, okay, well, let's look at those classroom behaviours. What's distracting him? Why? Let's just put him for one task. Let's put him in the little breakout room, see what he does. Sure enough, perfect in the little breakout room, you know, and then and leaving the door open, and he didn't feel isolated. He was very happy just doing his own thing in there. And then in the mainstream, just completely distracted. And so, look, he ended up actually being diagnosed with ADHD. But this would never have come to the fore if like just working at home on his own, because he was showing exemplary behaviour and focus, which was amazing. But put him in that distracting environment, and really he was getting C's whereas he should have been off the scale in, you know, on the reports that he was
and
getting.
That often happens with bright kids, doesn't it? Because if they are distracted, then they are not reaching their full potential.
Oh, absolutely.
Which can be frustrating for a teacher.
Yes, that's right.
But it probably takes also the observation of both the teacher and the parent to see what's happening and to understand, okay, yeah, he does work better on his own. Let's figure out a way to make that happen so that he can thrive.
Absolutely. And let him bring the work in from home. I mean, that's to be celebrated. And then say to him, like, rather than saying, no, that's homework, that's not work for now, you know, just sort of say, okay, why do you think, what makes it hard for you to do that here, you know? And I know he could have articulated, because I want to talk to my friends.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to see
what they're doing. For socializing, don't you know that?
Oh, very much so. And you know, with a little bit of sort of delving into the situation, it would have been very easy to happily, but no, in the end, that family moved to a different school where he would be understood better. And it was just a shame. But I think without that parent interaction, we're not going to get to the bottom of a lot of students learning.
Yeah.
We have to bring it back somehow.
And of course, it's one of the AITSL standards, knowing your students and how they learn. And parents have a lot of knowledge around that.
Yes, they do. And what kids can do at home is important to know. Like, this is the same child you have in your class.
Yeah.
And why
they're not putting on different personas in different environments, which they often do, but how can we bring home to school and school to home? Yeah,
that's right. So look, I've always enjoyed my parent things. Oh, and that brings me to the EALD, you know, because kids learning English can also be missed in the high potential category. And, just because, well, they're learning a language, they're already a step further than me,
Yes.
and so, and these natural language learners, some of them can be learning 2, 3, 4 languages. It's incredible. But tapping into them, and acknowledging that, okay, well, we could have a gifted learner here. So how do we find that out? How do we find out what they know just until they get enough English to be able to let us know? Because imagine us sort of, I don't know, going over to another country and them thinking we're silly just because we only know English,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that really plays out as well. I'm talking to parents, finding out a little bit about their education background and how much they're willing to help at home,
And you
putting
also
resources.
encourage them to speak in their own languages at home too, don't you,
Yeah.
through the
Oh,
program?
100%. And at school.
Yeah.
So in those early beginning emerging phase days, or, weeks and months, allow them to write in their home language if they're up to writing. I mean, a kindergarten kid may not be already writing, but those who are can. These days with Google Translate, you can mark or translate it and work out what content they know. So, for
Yes.
example, in history or geography, they may actually understand all the concepts in their home language. It's just that they can't express it in English yet. And that's what can be said in their report. They can be getting a high, but the report comment would say, this is yet to be expressed in English.
Yeah.
However, they have met all these outcomes because they know that content.
Right. And of
So
course, with
writing,
new AI tools that can translate
yes,
different languages, that would
amazing.
be something that you'd be exploring at the moment.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've been using AI with uni quite a lot with, creating rubrics and some sort of, I don't know, helping students know how to ethically use it,
Yes.
and when it comes to referencing and all that sort of thing. But we certainly are not saying to our pre-service teachers, just stay away from it for now. I try and do a tutorial using it, and their eyes just light up because a lot of them haven't had time yet to see how it relates to teaching.
Yeah.
And,
There's so much to learn in
yeah,
that space.
that's right. And so we'll put in, write a lesson plan for science using these outcomes, and then compare it and say, okay, well, now open the syllabus. And did that actually cover the content? No. Well, why not? Because you haven't put enough into AI to actually cover what you need to cover. So they're really learning. We're off the track a little bit here, but yeah, they're learning how to use it.
Yeah, but I
And
think that's
not
really
just,
interesting to
yeah,
know how they're using it, because I'm
yeah,
sure there's teachers trying to figure out how to use it and ethically,
yes,
to be able to save time
yeah,
but also to create their own rubrics and with the assistance. Well, it's sort of like having a virtual assistant, isn't it, really? Just to
yes.
kickstart the
Oh,
wording and then you can change it.
absolutely. And yeah, and make it so you can say child-friendly language. You can actually write that. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it is
Um,
amazing.
yeah. But then to make sure that it's actually given you the New South Wales syllabus, maybe not some other country's syllabus document. Um, so it needs to be checked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we do some interesting work around that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been fantastic hearing your story, because I think you've done so many different things over your 40-year career, and I really liked how you explained that there are different leadership opportunities to suit different people, and you've clearly found your place and
Each.
your niche, uh, and and obviously people have acknowledged your expertise as well by seconding you in different positions, and you've made your way through your career just with that never-ending passion for learning and educating others. So it's been a thrill to hear your story, and I'm really happy to share it with people, because you have so many different things that you've shared that people will find really helpful and useful. So I just want to thank you for your time today. And is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish up?
Oh, well, thanks, Rachel, for the opportunity. And look, I think perhaps that word is the key word there, opportunity. I am probably where I am now because I've taken up those opportunities. I've said yes where I've thought can I really do this? But you can always back out, and I just think that some people lose some excitement because they just stay with the mundane, and this is where I haven't become jaded, because I've been able to be excited about every year that has come up and think, oh, I wonder what's going to come up this year, and these opportunities do arise. And so I think take opportunities where you can, and keep loving it.
Yeah, life's full of exciting opportunities, isn't it? And it's I think you touched on it too, when you have a thought in your mind where you think, oh, I wouldn't mind trying that.
Yeah.
And then you can make it happen, or all of a sudden it just happens for you.
That's right. Either way. Yeah.
That's the exciting part of life, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
And being a learner.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And I'm looking forward to sharing the interview, and hopefully we'll get some great feedback. And I just wish you all the best for this year. And
thank you very much.
Would love to stay in touch. Well, what another inspiring interview in our Leadership in Education series of our Creating Connections podcast. If you enjoyed this interview and would like to learn more from other leaders in education, please click on the subscribe button to receive further podcasts on your feed. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, click on the link below to book a meeting with me to learn more about you and your leadership in education. Or if you're listening to this podcast, send an email to rachel@practicallylearning.com.au to express your interest in being on the podcast. If you are a school leader or teacher with aspirations for leadership, but you're challenged with self-doubt, overwhelm, and whether you have what it takes to take that next step, our Connect with Your Mind Mastery Coaching Program can support you to work on your own self-mastery to become the leader you aspire to be. For further information about our coaching and professional learning programs, please visit our website at practicallylearning.com.au or click on one of the links below and visit our podcast for our future series of interviews to support you as the adults who are guiding children on their learning journey. I do hope you enjoy the rest of our episodes on our Creating Connections podcast, and I hope to meet you soon.